Oh, hey, Dan.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? I'm Sergeant Dan Mills, senior recruiter out of Northwest Region. With me today is my new best friend, Sergeant Nick Keys. Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Dan. How are you?
Good. I just heard somebody's email. I'm going to shut.
I think that was my reminder.
Now.
Don't forget to do an Ask Me Anything session right now.
Don't forget your AMA today.
I work off alarms, Dan.
Yeah. So Nick and I actually had a really nice moment last week. We sat down and recorded a podcast. Nick's a super interesting person, and I heard a little bit about his story, and I've known him a little bit since he came into uniform recruitment, but he's in Ottawa. I'm in Thunder Bay. We don't see each other hardly ever. We met once in person in Aurelia last September. So we don't get a lot of time together, and we sat down and we recorded a podcast, and I feel like I know Nick a lot better, and I'm super appreciative. He's a really good man. So watch for that. I think that one might drop on Monday. So keep an eye out for that one. I'll look in my private chat and see what Sarah says and make sure that it's going to drop on Monday.
But no, it's not.
Yeah, she might say no, but I'm pretty sure we talked about it dropping on Monday. So
yeah, and thanks for having me on the podcast. That was I'm going to say my first, and who knows, maybe my last time I'll ever be on a podcast.
I was thinking
notifications every day.
I was actually thinking we discussed it a little bit after we were done recording. But maybe I'll throw it out to any of the audience that are listening out there. Throw a comment in the chat if you want to see us flip the podcast and have Nick host it and me as a guest on it. So interested to see what people think about that idea. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If not, we won't worry about it. I'm not very interesting, so I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to hear about me.
We'll reflect this reflections back on you, Dan.
Yeah.
So today we get to put East Region and Northwest Region's heads together for an Ask Me Anything session and see how many questions we can get out here. I wanted to do a little blurb here, Dan, or just a little shout out, because this is the first Ask Me Anything session that I've done during Pride Month. So I just wanted to send out our love and support to everyone in the 2S LGBTQ plus community. So glad that you exist. Happy Pride to you all. And I'm showing off my new epaulets. These are my new Pride epaulets that I got sent just recent. And
I'm not sure who's frozen.
Trying to be supportive, not performative.
There you go. I'm not sure who's frozen there. You or me, Nick? Nick's frozen. All right. Sorry, Nick. But I do agree with Nick. Thank you to all our 2S LGBTQ plus community members. And we hope you have a great month. And I know that there's a lot of events happening around the province. So please enjoy those safely. And have a great month. Sorry, Nick, you were frozen, so I had to take over, and they had to listen to me for a minute.
That's all good. I don't know where I left off, but hopefully I got the message across.
You did.
Anyway, so it's good to be here with you today, Dan. I woke up this morning, if you can see I'm lit by the black hole sun that we're experiencing in Eastern Ontario right now. I don't know what it's like up in Thunder Bay, but the skies look like some sort of planet from Star Wars, like Tatooine or something. You can look almost directly at the sun. You can smell the fires that are burning in Quebec and now in Calabogie, not too far west of here. So, yeah, there's now some pretty significant fires going just west of me here. So I woke up and I could smell it. So that's thinking of everyone that's dealing with that, and hopefully they get out okay and their homes are okay.
Yeah, it's odd that, I mean, I feel like we've had a fairly dry spring in my area, at least. I know Alberta was hot and burning earlier for the last month or so. My older daughters grew up. Their mom moved to Renfrew, so they're in East Region. And Calabogie is something that I hear about. That's where they ski and snowboard and spend a lot of their recreational time. So I am familiar a little bit with that area. So it's too bad that's fire.
We're starting to get the questions rolling in now already.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about the reach question, Mufasa. I know that there is a screening process. I think May 31st or 30th, near the end of May, was the cutoff date for the applications.
Yeah, I think the 26th.
The 26th. That's what it was. So it does take a couple weeks to get through that screening process. So just be patient, and we will get at that.
Yeah, I think right now everyone's taking a hard look at all of the applications that we got, and it's a great program. So if you missed this deadline on the 26th, keep checking back for the next round. But for those who are already have applied for this one, just be patient with us, and you should hear back soon.
Should be soon. Kyle asks, what are the dates for the next intake? That would be probably September would be the next intake. I think the current intake, the May intake, the April-May intake is already in, and they're in full swing and doing well. The next one would be end of August, beginning of September would be the next one. And then after that would be end of December, beginning of January. So there's 3 cohorts that OPC runs annually. There has been talk of making it 4, but we're not sure what that's going to look like yet. So stand by on that. But currently there's 3 cohorts. So one end of December, beginning of January, one end of April, beginning of May, one end of August, beginning of September.
Yep. And I see a question from Scott just asking if we get many people in their late 40s joining. So I can't speak to like the stats on that, Scott, but what I can say is that obviously our minimum age requirement is 18, and that's the only one. So as long as you can meet the rest of our requirements, then have at her, and we welcome your application. Absolutely.
Yeah, Scott, I'll direct you to episode 21 of the podcast with Nicola Morris, who is a probationary constable in her, let's say, beyond her 40s. So check that out and listen to her story. It's pretty inspiring. So yeah, we do hire many people beyond 40.
Okay. Okay, and I see one saying they're self-employed as a part-time Uber driver, don't have a supervisor. Is it okay to leave supervisor name and contact empty? We'll need access to your Uber reviews, of course. No, I don't know how we.
But I'm a 5-star Uber driver.
Yeah, I want to see how many stars you've got. I mean, there'll be some way of us assessing, unless part-time Uber driving is your only employment you've ever had, then we would look at other avenues if we can, and I'm sure there's ways to assess you there as well.
Someone's tuning in from southwestern Ontario. Shane, come on up north, Shane. Have an adventure. Are we still able to apply for auxiliary? Yeah, you can. Auxiliary is very much like our uniform recruitment. application process. There's never any cutoff date. It's a continuous intake of applications and processing of applications. I was just having a conversation with a phone call with somebody who's looking at options within the OPP, and I really spoke a lot about the auxiliary with them because they're just kind of entering their final year of university, and they want to start kind of like exploring the idea of policing. And the auxiliary program is just such a great program. I started my career with our auxiliary program. It really gave me a great launch pad into my career in policing, but it does a lot for us. And when we talk about our 10 areas of assessment, like it gives you something to speak to with relation to community service, because it's a volunteer group that works under the OPP. We're responsible for a lot of different things. Our auxiliary members can go on ride-alongs with officers. They can be involved at their detachments in a lot of different ways. They can help out with like marine patrols and different things like that. They can help out with community events. So any like parades or any outreach events in communities, they can attend and help represent the OPP and provide information for traffic control at parades and different things like that. So there's a lot of different ways that our auxiliary members can interact within the OPP and different responsibilities they have. So it's a great way to serve your community. There's a ton of different education that you can get because we provide a whole bunch of training for our auxiliary members. There's monthly training plus the initial training that you get with regards to like some use of force types of training, some firearms familiarization types of training. Some of our policies and procedures and radio systems and computer kind of reporting systems and stuff like that. So you get a whole bunch of relevant training that you can speak to. You may be provided with some leadership experience as well. And you're always going to be working on your communication skills with interacting with the public. So I'm a huge advocate of the auxiliary program. I can't say enough about it. If you're kind of on the fence whether this is for you or not, I would say like submit an application for the auxiliary program and see how it fits if you're successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the opportunity to do some work with the auxiliary program for a few years as the provincial coordinator, and it was a great program. Lots of great interactions with the community and with officers that you might be working with one day. And what better way to prove yourself than to be working right alongside our officers? And yeah, if you do a great job, then those are the people that are going to be supporting your application when you end up putting it in. And like Dan said, it's going to let you know for sure if this is for you or not, because you're going to get about the closest seat to the driver's seat that you will anywhere with the auxiliary program. I see there was a question about the OAC certificate. So it's not required to apply. However, if you have it, you can include it in your application, and we will accept the hearing and vision results and the Sigma results from that. So it's not a requirement, but we will take portions of that, and we can use that towards your file for sure.
Justine's asking, with the time that you spent on the job, do you still feel the same thrill of the job compared to when you started as a new recruit? I'll leave that. I'll let you answer that one first, Nick.
Oh, is this one of those ones where you were going to throw them at me?
No, not one of those ones. This is more like the podcast. So, Nick, tell me about a time.
Oh, okay. Well, let me get comfy. Well, do I still get excited? Okay, so one thing I will say is they're very different roles from what I'm doing now to when I first hit the road as a recruit. I will say there's a certain excitement or whatever nervousness or nervous excited energy that you get from just being brand new to everything, right? Like when I first got to Aurelia detachment, I was like a baby and I was just seeing everything for the first time. So I don't know that you'll ever get that exact feeling again, because you've done these things enough times that you almost kind of kid yourself and think you know what you're getting into when you're heading to a call. But it's always different challenges, and no matter what role, whether you're out there in a cruiser or you're here answering questions for people that are excited and interested in a career in policing, it keeps you interested. And then if you aren't excited and interested, there are other avenues to start pursuing. So I would say the excitement keeps changing, but there is still a level of excitement in my career today. It's different, very different, but it's still there.
Yeah, and I would over to you, Dan. I would entirely agree with that. That was really well put, Nick. And I think that I can concur with that in pretty much every way. Like when you think about the different roles, I've done a bunch of different roles within the OPP, from being a new recruit, frontline policing, working within the community, my time on the emergency response team, my time as an instructor, right? And every one of those roles is very different, but is very rewarding and thrilling in its own way, right? So like the new recruit feeling is something that you'll only experience once, but it lasts for a little while. You always kind of feel new for the first year or even more sometimes. And it's always exciting when you put on your uniform and it's like, hey, look, I got a gun. Like, I got a gun. Like, that's a weird feeling at first, right? And the uniform, people are proud of the uniform. They're proud. Their parents are proud. Their family members are proud, right? You're not going to get that feeling back. But I can tell you, like, when you first put on your ERT uniform and you go to your first ERT call, like there's that pride and there's that thrill that goes along with it. Every time you find a kid who's missing, right, and you bring them back to their family, like you cannot beat that feeling. You cannot beat that feeling. So, and it's with everything. I got a lot of fulfillment from my instructor role in our training unit, teaching officers and interacting with officers and connecting with officers and just, trying to do my piece to try to help them with their careers and do a better job at their careers. Right. So it's all different. It's a different thrill.
And on that note, Dan, about that feeling when you're brand new, I don't know if they did this with you, but do you remember at the police college, the first day when you go out in the community in your uniform and then you get to go to that Tim Hortons in town? You get to have your first Tim Hortons coffee in uniform in town. And you're like, people will see me now. And you realize that it's a town that has a police college in it. So they don't think it's cool or weird or anything that you're saying.
They do not care.
They don't care, but you think they do. And it's a weird feeling when they first look at you and you're like, they're seeing me in my uniform.
Yeah.
And then you walk past a mirror and you're like, whoa. And then you're
Who's
like,
that? Oh, that's just me.
I saw questions flying in fast and furious. Oh, geez, I had a couple easy ones I was cherry picking for myself here.
Swimming is not mandatory. I probably took that one. Swimming is not mandatory. It's definitely a benefit. There are a couple like little pieces of swimming at the police college that they ask you to do, but it's by no means it's if you can tread water a little bit, you'll probably be okay. And I would say that if you're interested, though, take a swimming class. It doesn't hurt to do. It's a great skill to have. We ask if you can swim because we want to know that, in that piece that you can succeed. But I mean, there have been people who have gone to OPC as not strong swimmers who have done some extra work while they're there with the staff there, and have gotten to a point where they're okay.
I know we were talking about attention to detail in our green room there before we started this up, Dan, but here's a little attention to detail moment that Nick learned while at OPC. We were to wear our clothes to one of the swimming classes because we were going to get the feeling of what it was like to do like a water rescue in our clothes. However, there was a caveat that you also have your bathing suit underneath. You don't just show up in clothes. So Nick missed that part and swam the entire class in full clothing. And I think the instructor might have said, if someone's drowning, hopefully someone else is there and not just me. And I went into it feeling like a strong swimmer, grew up swimming in lakes and everything all my life. And I just felt like, yeah, So that's my swimming story at OPC. They didn't like that too much when they saw me doing laps in pants and long sleeve shirts. I see somebody saying, should I start volunteering before I start my process? And you know what? For this one, Dan, and maybe there's some circumstances where it's not, but I know everyone's chomping at the bit, and I know you're excited and you want to get in. However, you don't want to put your application in saying, and I'm planning on doing some good stuff coming up, or and I'm planning on volunteering here and that, because that doesn't really mean anything. If you've not done it and you've not demonstrated a commitment to it, it doesn't really mean anything except you're just throwing some nice words on the paper, right? So when it comes to things like volunteering or being able to pass that shuttle run or those things that you know that we're going to be looking for, I definitely wouldn't throw them in my application when I don't have any of that in place, because you're going to do yourself a disservice, in my opinion. What do you think about that, Dan?
It's funny, we were talking earlier about I can't remember exactly what we were saying. We'll have to recreate that conversation because it was super good. But in our podcast, there was something that you'd said that I picked up on, and I was like, yes, I'm taking that, and that's going to become a Dan Mills original. But I learned from you. So one of the things that I do, and I don't know how you approach it, Nick, when people ask me about volunteering, I always kind of bring up the example that when I talk to people about the why, like, why do you want to be a police officer? Often people respond by saying, because I want to have a positive impact in my community. I want to help my community. So my answer to the community service piece is, okay, but how are you doing that right now? Right? Like, you're saying you want to, but how are you doing that right now? If it means that much to you, how are you doing that right now? So that's why the community service piece is it's a bit of a bigger deal, right? And we want to see it because you're going to be engaged with your community, and you're going to be doing things for your community above and beyond. You're going to be trying to make your community a better place, right? Like, that's what we do. So it's important that you value that, right? And we want to see that you're doing that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And and what we were talking about, Dan, now that I've just remembered, aka picked it up out of the window there, was that when we're looking at the areas of assessment, we were going to talk a little bit about the areas of assessment and how to see if you're ready to apply, making sure you're at your best and going to put your best foot forward. And for me, what we had talked about is, if you're sitting there going, I haven't done any volunteer work, I haven't, you know what I mean? I don't have anything that fits in this category or that category. My thing was, because I was in that boat when I was applying, was ask somebody you love. Because when I turned to my beautiful wife and I said, hey, I'm really struggling in these categories, it took her 2 seconds to spit out 10 things in each category that I had done that I completely disregarded, because we just do these things. And if it's something like, you may be doing things in your community all the time, but in your mind, you have to be an auxiliary member or volunteering with Big Brothers for it to count. So sometimes you need to take, like Dan Mills often says, an out of the box kind of look at those areas of assessment. That's a Nick original now.
Yeah, that's a Nick original. Yeah, give yourself credit for things, like, and I love the way I love the way that Nick looks at it. Like, talk to people who know you and can help remind you. Say, like, hey, what you know me, what have I done for the community? And they could probably list off 10 things that you've probably already forgotten, right? So I think that's really great advice. And I like to give the example of, like, everybody has special skills that they don't give themselves any credit for, right? And often people think about a career in policing and they don't see how different skills can relate to that career in policing. So the example that I like to use is Inspector Chris Collins. He was the manager in uniform recruitment. He's now at Aurora Detachment, but prior to being a police officer, he was a Red Seal carpenter. Now you think about, and I was totally ignorant to this too. you think about a carpenter, what does that have to do with policing? But through his career, Inspector Collins was able to get onto the USERT team, and they're responsible for a bunch of different things: chemical, biological, radiation, decontamination, but also part of their mandate is urban search and rescue. And there was a mall collapse in Elliott Lake, which is between Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury. And he used his carpentry skills as a specialist to help shore up the building and do a bunch of framing in the building so that they could get in and rescue people. So when you think about special skills and giving yourself credit for things, maybe your electrical background or your background as a computer programmer, or whatever that looks like, maybe use that in some tech related field within the OPP, and you just don't put those things together. So give yourself credit for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, me coming in, Dan, like I was a musician, and I didn't think that would ever relate to policing. And
wait, you were a musician?
Yeah. Oh, not a magician.
Oh,
Sorry to get you excited there. I'm a musician.
Musician.
I can't pull no rabbits out of my hat. Yeah, but you know what? When I was a civilian with the OPP and trying to do anything I could to get my next job or get someone to notice me so that I have some support when I was wanting to put in. I never thought music would come in handy, and I ended up bringing my guitar up to Pikangikum and for a youth camp. And that was gold because it was my way of connecting with these kids. And a lot of them, English is not the first language. They're speaking Anishinaabemowin, and and as soon as I started singing and playing the guitar, it was on. So then I was like, okay, so maybe. And then all of a sudden, I ended up getting called on to sing "O Canada" at graduations and things like that, which is a little nerve wracking, and it wasn't really my thing, but you know what? Music, like if music can apply to it, then just about anything, any skills you might have, can you be surprised? It's all people skills, right? Because I mean, sure, you got your own vision of what policing is, but really it's just being a good human being and trying to help people out in their worst day most times. And there's all kinds of experience that can lend to that. Hey Dan, do I have to go if I get hired? Do I have to relocate, or can I work at my local detachment?
Yeah, everybody's got to come to Northwest Region. It's a great experience. No, just kidding. You don't.
We threaten to send people to Dan's region. No.
Why do you say it like that? You say it like that, and it's like this bad thing. It's not. It's such a great place to be.
No, I'm going up there.
No, we give you six detachment selection, so you can select 6 detachment postings throughout your application process, and you can change those postings throughout your application process right up until the time that you're offered employment. Yeah, so do a little research. Look at the different detachments that are listed on our website. You can pick 6 of those. So if you don't want to move, or you'd prefer not to move, or you want to stay within commuting distance to your current residence, you can pick all detachments in that area. There's no guarantee that you will get them, but we really do try hard to put people in the detachments that one of the top 6 that they pick. Again, operational requirements at those detachments and vacancies and such can impact that at the time of offer. But we really do try hard, because happy people are good employees, right? So we try to work that out. Somebody asked about auxiliary vision standards somewhere back here. I'm just reaching back here. I think it was Ivy. Where are you, Ivy? There, 2040 uncorrected. I'm not sure what the auxiliary program standards are, but if you go to opp.ca/auxiliary, you should be able to find the information there. I know that 2040 for uniform recruitment is the standard that you have to meet. If you're worse than that, then you would have to get corrective surgery, or if that's what you wanted. Again, we're not going to make you do that. But if you choose, you can get corrective surgery. And then after a couple appointments to make sure that it took and everything was good, then you can apply or continue your application process. But I'm not sure what that looks like with the auxiliary.
I think it's pretty. I don't quote me, but I believe it is the same standards. But I see one. This one, I swear this one came up last time. I love this question, and I might actually have to send an email to our Professional Standards Bureau to just get a straight answer on this. Someone really wants to be a police officer, and they also are an MMA fighter and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. And they're wanting to know if you can do that professionally and be a police officer. I just keep picturing the video coming up after you're in a tussle on the road because you're having someone resist arrest, and then they cut to you doing a ground and pound on your spare time. I really don't think the two careers would jive. Would the skills be amazing to have on the road to protect yourself and to keep yourself safe? Absolutely. I just don't. I'll have to check that out. But what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, we are allowed what they consider secondary employment. You have to submit paperwork that goes up the chain of command and can be approved up the chain of command. I do know, just from my time in service training, I know that some of the instructors had done some professional fighting in their past or amateur fighting in the past, and one was currently an amateur fighter, so not MMA, they were boxers. So I know that it has happened, but I like your comment, Nick. Like, I'm not sure what our OPRO PSB side of the house would think of that if there was a use of force incident.
Just seems like the media would just love it. Like it might not look great. But
Stand
good
by.
on you for being skilled in that, because that's amazing, and that's going to look great on special skills on your application. It just might not be something you get to do both at the same time while you're a serving police officer.
Stand by, and I'll have an answer on my next AMA.
There you go. I did my college at Georgian College. Can I apply? Absolutely. That's right next door to GHQ, isn't it? We've actually worked pretty closely with Georgian College. We used to, and I think we still do. So absolutely, you can apply. And I see someone got citizenship. Oh, it is
same person.
Yeah, same person. That's amazing, and that is a requirement. So good for you. That's awesome.
Shane is asking about if we've ever had to seek professional help after witnessing an accident. So that's an interesting question. And again, not to scare anybody off. We do see some things in our career that we can't unsee. We do have a lot of support internally for that. We have our healthy workplace team. We have I think we have 5 psychologists on staff within the OPP. We have mental health clinicians on staff as well that work with them. We have care navigators. We have all types of internal assistance, and we also have external assistance through our benefits programs. So we do have a lot available for us in regards to like looking after our mental health. I can only speak about my personal experience. In 2014, I was diagnosed with PTSD through my ERT career, seeing a bunch of I was involved in a couple officer related shootings. I was also a tactical paramedic who dealt with a lot of things that you could probably imagine, some of them not being the best. So I've had my fair share of trauma that I've been exposed to, but I've definitely sought professional help. And I've gone through a whole journey relating to my PTSD as far as healing and learning how to manage it better. And some people can go through their entire career and not need that. And it's not because they haven't seen similar things. It's just they process it differently and they manage it differently. So again, there's no real good answer for that, but we do have stuff available.
Thanks for sharing that, Dan. And I don't know that I knew that about you, but I was also diagnosed with PTSD. I don't remember what year it was, but it wasn't work related. It was going through about a 2.5-year cancer treatment with my little girl, and all of the scary moments throughout that 2.5 years. And you know what? I definitely relied on some of the supports that we have available to us as OPP members. I used EAP, like telephone counseling. I went and got all kinds of kind of cool treatment. Actually, some of the treatment was pretty neat. I found it fascinating, and I found there was a lot of support. So I think it's important that you mention that kind of stuff, Dan, because that's another thing. Like, where it's not to break down that stigma of seeking help. We know, like, I think most people could imagine that there's going to be things that would affect you that you're going to see in a policing career over 30 years, and some worse than others, and some hit you, some you'd think should hit you really hard, and they don't, and some you wouldn't have thought would affect you, and they do. And I think it's important to know that we do have the OPP has really made a lot of efforts to support us that way. And I can say a lot of the time you get kind of jaded and you wonder, do we do this to just to have a checkbox or to have it on paper that we're doing something? But when I needed it, I think that the OPP really stepped up and they were there for me. So yeah, that's another thing that I can say with career in policing and with the OPP specifically. That's been a real focus over the years, and we're getting better and better at it, and we're continuing to keep improving in that way. So yeah, we've definitely both talked to someone about it.
Yeah. Hello, I'm an RCMP member, originally from Ontario, working in BC, hoping to move back home in the near future. Out of province apps are virtual or in person. So with our EPO program, Mike, sorry, you just slid down the screen there. All of our stuff is virtual. We'll be able to look after you virtually for any interviews or appointments or anything like that through the process. Worry less about the pair. That's one of the expectations that we don't have of our EPOs during the application process. We address it later in the process. So it's just a conversation that you'll have during your process. So yeah, good. Thanks for the question, Mike.
I see one from Ryan has got a question about fitness logs. So do your fitness logs have to be ready at the time you apply and included with your application? And I think they do, especially if we're asking. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure 2 weeks is with your initial application.
Yeah, 2 weeks in your package with the rest of the documentation in your initial application.
And I think the second part of the question is, are you able to pick? It says the reference department. I don't know if you mean your detachment postings or what that piece is. I'm not entirely sure. Your postings will be selected up front if that's what you meant, but if you didn't mean that, then I'm not too sure what you did.
Somebody's asking about psych testing, doing psych testing a couple months before. How long will it take for the background invest? So Jeff, I'm not sure if I understand this entirely. So you've done your psych testing and you're waiting for your background investigation. I do know that our background investigators right now are enormously tasked, and there's a little bit of a backup there. So you might have to be a little bit patient with that process if that's what you mean. But it should be happening. The background should be happening soon, if that's what you mean.
We got a question about missing some payments on your credit card and how that might impact your financial assessment and what is checked. So so we do want to know how you take care of your finances, and we do recognize that you may have some bumps in the road financially. We want to look at overall what's the big picture. Are you a responsible person? Can you take care of your finances? Can you, like, you know what I mean? We want to know if you're going to be someone who's demonstrating responsible behavior. So if you missed some payments on your credit card, then if that was me, I would want to come into my interview ready to speak to that. And I would want to speak to what happened and what I learned from it, and hopefully demonstrate how that's changed since. So don't let something like that prevent you from putting in. Absolutely do it anyway. But anything that you're going to find that's going to be an awkward thing that you think might be a negative in your background, own it and know it and present it as hopefully you've learned from it. And if you haven't, it'll be apparent, right? So that would be my advice on that one.
Yeah, I'd agree. We're none of us are perfect. We've all, had hiccups in life, and it's just owning it and learning from it. Like, a lot of people think like, oh, I got a speeding ticket, like that's a deal breaker for me, right? Well, it's not. We just don't want to see a pattern of poor driving behavior. We get that people, make mistakes and people get tickets, right? So I like this one. I'm going to answer this one, Nick.
All right.
How many candidates is the OPP hiring for the September class?
Oh,
our target is, Nick?
135.
135 recruits. So that's always our target. For every class, we're trying to hire 135. So yeah, keep the applications coming. We'll keep processing them as quickly as we can, and ideally we'll meet those numbers.
And Dan, someone's got family in Winnipeg. You don't know any OPP detachments that are near Winnipeg, do you?
Kenora detachment's only 2 hours. It's a short 2-hour drive from Winnipeg, Manitoba. So you definitely want to come to Northwest Region. You'll be nice and close. Your family will be able to come and visit you. You will be able to go and visit your family. Winnipeg's a nice city. I like Winnipeg.
And so, Dan, you did time with ERT, our emergency response team. Someone's asking, Mitchell, is asking, how long would you think someone would be on the road before they start looking at, once they got their basics under them and want to start looking at specialized units?
Generally speaking, 3 years is the kind of the minimum, but it's generally speaking, it's 3 to 5 years of frontline experience before you start kind of looking at specializing. Now that can be different in different regions. And again, I'm going to plug Northwest Region here. But we have had, just because of attrition and turnover, because often members come from Southern Ontario. When they get hired, they do a duration in Northwest Region, and then they go back to where they come from. When they go back, there's holes to be filled, right? So some of those specialty units have more vacancies more often, right? And I know people that have been successful in applying for the emergency response team within 2 years of being hired in Northwest Region. So not saying that we have more opportunities here, but we may have opportunities for different things sooner in your career. Maybe, sometimes.
And I'm looking at a question from Kapil saying, I did my Bachelor of Commerce and Law in India, and I think a postgrad diploma from York University. Would I be eligible for this job? Absolutely, you would. Yep, thumbs up to that. We require high school, and if you have schooling beyond that, then that is an absolute bonus. And most people applying do, but it's not a requirement. So that's just going to make you more competitive in the education piece.
Hassan's asking how many months the process takes after submitting the application. Typically, it takes between 3 to 6 months to process an application, from application to, if successful, an offer of employment. So again, some parts of the process move faster, and you'll be hearing from us fairly often to get, different things sent to us or different information from you, or schedule interviews or appointments or conversations or whatever that looks like. And then there's going to be times that it's like you don't hear from us for a little while, and it's crickets, and people usually get nervous, and they need somebody to talk them off a ledge, right? So just be patient, and we will get through the process as quickly as we can. We're always working. Actually, Nick, I have to say, like, this unit of ours, the team that we have, is super busy all the time, always, hustling, trying to get things done and trying to get through our processing.
Yeah, because we know we've got some eager applicants chomping at the bit, waiting to get into OPC. So, and we know we need more officers on the road. So it's it's fast and furious. And I'm seeing someone asking about, and I don't know for sure. Maybe you'll know, Dan, but I don't know. The uniform psych test versus special constable. I know that we will, like, if you've identified that in your process that you've gone through for special constable and you've done some of our testing already, we'll use as much as we can, as long as we know. We don't want to duplicate work and delay things further than we need to. But I believe there may be another component to our psych test versus special constable, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, for the testing that we do for our regular recruits, if you've done any of those tests I think there's a time frame. I think it's either within a year or 2 years. I can't speak to that 100%, but if you've done those components, you'll get credit for those components, but there's probably some other ones that you'll have to top up on.
Are you able to utilize a profile picture in uniform cruiser on dating app?
I mean, you can.
You know what? I think I should read these before I just start saying them out loud.
That's
Jesse,
funny. Do what you. I always say.
If you maybe you could put a fire truck on it, maybe try that.
Yeah, try that, or a pot of chili. I always say, do what you want. Right? But there's always consequences. So I do know that our professional standards folks in Oprah would not think kindly of that. There would definitely, it would be seen as a conflict. Again, even when you're off duty in this job as a police officer, you are representing the OPP. So again, if you have a picture of you in uniform and you're spreading that around and you're saying different, like you're, voicing political views or this or that or the other thing, right? How you behave reflects on the organization. And if you're reflecting poorly on the organization, then there probably will be consequences to that, right? So again, that's something that don't do that.
Yeah. And, I was thinking, that whole conflict of interest thing where you could use your position to gain the favor of whatever. I think that might apply to dating. I don't know, Dan.
Yeah. And honestly, I'll my personal opinion and my personal story. I don't even have on any of my social media that I'm a police officer. I don't share that with anybody. That's a personal thing. I don't want people to know, because people always invariably will say, hey, I want to know about this, or what can you tell me about this, or I got a ticket and it sucks, and can you talk to somebody to get me out of it, or this or that or the other thing, right? So there's always, I just like, life is so much easier when people don't know that you're a police officer. I just put that I work for the government of Ontario, and that is it, right?
I don't want to alarm you, Dan, but this might be on social media right now.
No.
Yes, live. We're live.
So people know.
People are going to know. You just moved yourself to the province and the world.
Man, oh man. I should have thought of that before I started doing a podcast.
Keep your work life and your home life separate to an extent, right? Like you want to. It's for your own benefit, because believe it or not, some people don't even really like the police. I've heard that.
And people lie to the police. Yeah, it's weird.
That too. So you might not be doing yourself a service on the dating app. Get a nice picture of you at the pancake breakfast in front of the fire truck.
Throw it on dog.
There, and away you go. Does a Canadian Armed Forces reservist need the same qualifications to apply as a civilian?
Yes.
Yeah.
You will have a ton of other transferable skills and special skills that you can speak to that would make you more competitive because of that experience that you have in your life. But the minimum requirements are all the same. Yeah. And the process is all the same.
And then there's a question about being able to take a pain medication if you have like a chronic condition or something and be a police officer. And I wouldn't be able to answer that. Because maybe my big glasses make me look smart, but I'm not a doctor. So that would be, if your doctor signs off and says, here's the duties of a police officer, here's what you're taking, and here's how it's fine, then I'm sure that it's going to be a non-issue, but that's a medical decision.
We have to be fit for duty, right? We operate vehicles depending on the side effects of the medication that you're taking. We have to operate vehicles and make quick decisions and have good judgment, right? So again, it would depend how the medication might affect your ability to do those things, but that's something that your doctor would look after. Somebody's asking about the beep test. Should they wait? They're not quite at level 7. Should they wait to apply? My advice is yes, because the video submission for successful completion of the shuttle run to level 7 comes right away. So when you submit your application, our intake coordinator processes your application. If it passes the screening, then you're going to be given correspondence and assigned a file number. And at that point, they are going to give you direction on submitting the video submission for the shuttle run. So it comes right away at the very beginning. So make sure that you're there when you apply, because it's coming fast.
Braden's asking if you've submit your 6 preferred posting locations for which detachments you'd like to work at. Can you change your mind? And yeah, I mean, you can. Like, I would personally, like, just if I was the applicant, I would want to be as sure as possible before I write those down. But absolutely, it's not a apply and that's it. If there are changes and updates to your situation or whatever the case, then you can send an email to our team, and we'll do what we can to accommodate the best we can. But just keep in mind, you want to be putting your best foot forward, and you want to be prepared when you put that application in and know what you're looking at and know what you want. But if your situation changes, family moves to another side of the province and you want to be close to them or something, then yeah, absolutely, we'd entertain those type of things.
Manav has worked in the security area and he's currently corrections in Manitoba. Would your work experience make you more competitive? Absolutely. It's relevant and related and transferable to a career in policing, 100%. James likes your comment about the fire truck. I'm pretty hard on firefighters, I have to say. It's all in fun, though. I have a lot of respect for firefighters. They have a dangerous job, and they do. I have a ton of respect for them. But I do like poking fun at them and joking about chili cook-offs and baby oil and sleeping in calendars and all that type of stuff. So. But they're awesome. We have a lot of respect for them. It's a healthy kind of back and forth. I know that they have a lot of jokes about police officers too.
Especially right now, Dan, we got to give them all the respect in the world because they're out there nonstop around the clock right now, and they're making up for all those chili cook-offs right now. They are
That's right.
Bringing people in from all over. Other countries are coming in to help. So yeah, absolutely. If you hear us slag firefighters, we might just be a little jelly. That's all.
100%.
People love those guys.
Man,
we should
everybody.
Hey, we should do a live like police firefighter one of these.
Yeah.
Ones. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, we should start it off with like a tug of war kind of a thing.
I was thinking just get them to carry me into my seat over their shoulder and throw me down.
Yeah.
Someone was asking about Police Week events, and so obviously a lot of our Police Week events were canceled and rescheduled. So I can give you just a quick little rundown if you're curious about events. We just had one just down the hall here at Smiths Falls at our East Region headquarters today. There was a good turnout for that. I got to go and say hi to that group. On the 7th, so that's tomorrow, Norfolk has got an info session. On the 7th as well, there's going to be another virtual constable information session.
That's me.
Is that you?
Yep, tomorrow, 7 o'clock in the evening.
All right. And then June 8th, we've got Toronto and London Police Week events. And on the 9th in Renfrew. So, and there's more events on the website. So take a look at opp.ca/careers. Can I do that thing where I make it appear below?
Down here.
There's an invisible button here. I just can't make it.
We're not as cool as YouTubers, Nick.
I want to be though. Like it seems so neat when they just point and words come up, but they never come up when I point.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually had our Northwest Region events yesterday. One in Thunder Bay here at Inner City Mall. Had a really great turnout. I had members of the emergency response team there with me. Our healthy workplace team. Our traffic reconstructionist was there, crime unit was there, auxiliary members were there. So we had a really good representation of a lot of different things. And they also had an event at Fort Francis Detachment, very similar in nature, with a bunch of different specialty units and areas of the OPP represented, and had good turnout there. So, and I know Northeast Region also had an event yesterday as well.
And I should say, Dan, if anyone is in Eastern Ontario, this weekend, I'm going to be at the Smiths Falls Spirit of the Drum Powwow. So there's going to be all kinds of dancing and food, and so come on down if you're in the area. Come say hi at the recruitment booth and try some Indian tacos, and maybe get out there and learn a few steps on an intertribal or two. Yeah, come out and see me because I'm going to be hanging out and enjoying the powwow. So
I love Bannock, man. Go get some Bannock.
Yes, there will be some Bannock had for sure.
Go get some Bannock. You can probably get an autograph from Sergeant Nick Keys.
Oh yeah, well yeah, geez.
He was a magician before.
I used to be a touring magician. No. Someone was asking, can you do more than the required hours for auxiliary? Absolutely. And some people really, they love it and they have the time to dedicate and they throw themselves right into it. And how often can you go on ride-alongs? Well, I would say, how are you to sit in a car with for 12 hours would be what I would say. Because if you are a joy to hang out with in a car, you can go out on as many ride-alongs as you want. But you know how it is, right? If you got to be someone that you want to sit in a car with for 12 hours. So keep that in mind. Keep your road trip etiquette in mind when you're going out on your first few, and I'm sure it'll be great, and you'll be out on ride-alongs all the time, and that's a great time. I remember I didn't do the auxiliary thing, but I remember going on ride-alongs back in the day, and I remember being like just nerdy excited about it, like even the boring ones.
Yeah. And it's funny though, like the relationships that you build and the connections that you make. Like I can recall, like as an auxiliary member, the officers that I rode along with, I could probably say all of them are still very good friends of mine, and that I met through that opportunity. So, yeah, as many as hours as you can get, as many as ride-alongs as you're permitted to do. Sometimes it'll be up to the detachment and the officers there whether they feel like taking somebody. Sometimes people have an off day, right, and they don't want any company in their car. But I think for the most part, you could go on as many as you want. So with that. This is the part I hate the most about these AMAs, Nick, is the goodbye part.
I hate goodbyes.
Yeah, and it's because I know there's so many more questions there that we haven't answered. So again, I apologize for that. If we didn't get your question answered, please tune in next week at the same time, same place, and continue to ask the questions. Like Nick mentioned, there's a whole bunch of upcoming events. If you can make it to one of those live events and ask your question to the recruiter there, or I am doing a virtual information session tomorrow evening at 7:00. So just go on our upcoming events, register for that event, and then just get my attention during that event, and I'll try to answer all the questions that I can there as well.
And in the meantime, check out Reflections as well, because Dan's got a heck of a podcast. If you can't get enough of hearing the two of us yammer on,
yeah. If you want to, hey, and I didn't throw in any spoilers either about what our conversation was about, but Nick is a musician. He's a heck of a musician. I've heard some of his stuff and it's super good. And we have a really cool conversation about Nick's music career. So check it out. I think it's one of my favorites. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed my time that I spent with Nick talking. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.